British Museum today, seeing the Michelangelo exhibition. Now, I hope that they're going to let me film drawing, which they might not, because I want to put the camera on a stand. Yeah, they did not let me use a stand. I've got the Note AIr3 C and I've got the Bigme Inknote X. And I also brought the Supernote A5X, the first one, because I wanted to compare Atelier with those two things. Thought about bringing the Scribe and the Remarkable as well, but my bag's already heavy enough and I didn't really fancy carrying all 5 today. The one thing is that they don't have pencil tools with tilt, so will I miss that? And of course, you've got the difference between color on the Note AIr3 C and the Inknote X, and black and white on the Supernote. But I think honestly, the pen tools in the Atelier app will actually make that a better experience. We'll see. Testing out a little bit of drawing on color, you always get this funny thing. It looks so different on the e-ink screen than it does actually when you've downloaded that or shared that image. I've really been enjoying the Bigme Inknote X, I must admit, especially enjoyed it just there on the train, not first class this time, just reading Watchmen, which is really, really good. And I didn't know Watchmen came out of a line from Bob Dylan, Midnight, All the Agents. And I've also been enjoying it at work for making my notes and doing my planning. And actually the screen on it is really quite good. It is a good balance between being clear and crisp and having that bit of texture, that bit of grip that lets you write but accurately and neatly. So let's see how good that is for drawing compared to the Note AIr3 C. And what I'm thinking about the Bigme is that the processor is actually so good in it. It does feel really snappy, whether that's writing or changing between apps. I'm impressed. Well, that was brilliant. It was a great exhibition. And well, I can say hands down, actually, the Supernote won that. That's definitely the one that I enjoyed drawing on the most. I just think the pen tools are just so much better. And having that textured airbrush, I thought it was absolutely fabulous. I did tell a bit of a lie earlier on though, and I said that Boox doesn't have tilt. I said they all don't have tilt, but actually Boox does have a pencil with tilt in there, as tilt and pressure. But unfortunately, that is absolutely plagued by this bug where it crashes the whole thing. And it did it in there as well, and so that was a bit annoying. Luckily, I have put on the autosave function, but actually it lost me a few minutes of drawing, so that is really quite frustrating. That's a bug that I would have thought you would have fixed by now, Boox, so come on, go ahead and fix that bug, because I'm sure it must be something that you can do. The hardware is definitely capable of managing that pencil tool, and when it works really, really well. So let's make sure that's available for future. The Bigme was really nice to draw on as well. But honestly, like you'd think, wouldn't you, that the two of them, the Boox and the Bigme, would have the upper hand vastly over the Supernote, because they've got, in a dark environment like that, they've got a front light and they've got the textured screen, which is good, a nice pencil feeling texture. And of course they've got color. But I just feel like e-ink color isn't quite there, and maybe that's a subject for a longer video actually, about whether color e-ink is truly worth it currently at this point. Or actually, is it just a stopgap before we have true color e-ink with a CMYK, with real e-ink capsules to give you like a printed look, rather than this kind of halfway house where you've got this color matrix in between the actual e-ink pixels. Gonna go and find the Elgin marbles now and sit with them for a little while. There is a lot here, and we should definitely send them all back to Greece. From the British Museum, I went on to the National Gallery and I saw an exhibition of a Caravaggio, and of course I had a look around the main galleries as well. I absolutely love that place. Make sure you visit when you're in London. So I quite surprised myself how much I enjoyed drawing on the Supernote actually. When I thought, well, I'd bring one of the black and white ones as well, I was actually lower down my list, and then I thought to myself, well, actually the Atelier program is that good. It is an improvement over what there is on other e-ink tablets, and sure enough, it was absolutely brilliant drawing with that Atelier app. But the other companies, they really need to follow on that. Can you believe we used to feed pigeons in this Trafalgar Square here? The color wasn't really bothering me. Anything that was bothering me really on the Supernote was actually the touch input was a little bit laggy compared to the other ones. The other ones having that better processing power, they're just managing to take touch input and pen input that little bit faster. Well, the pen's quite quick with the Supernote. The touch, you know, when you're typing in on the little on-screen keyboard and stuff, it left something to be desired. And you really notice the difference going to one of the newer ones with a higher processing power. So there's that. But then of course you come to the impressionist wing and all of a sudden you want to work on one of the color tablets. But then the thing is that you just don't have enough colors in any way to do justice to the impressionist works anyway. Still, I really enjoy drawing on these things. Here's some examples, and well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those colors off onto my computer and play with them in Lightroom and see if I can actually get the color to balance really well. Certainly if Boox or Bigme can add a dedicated drawing app and make it just as good as Atelier app, then that'll be a real winner on those tablets. And they really do need to give you access to all of the different colors in the color palette and give you some more control over making it look like you want it to look afterwards, because you see, as soon as you get them on an OLED screen or any other LCD, it just looks like a splurge of color. And all this tells you really that color ink, currently, the current generation is fine, but it's just a stopgap, allowing you to use things like apps, rather than it being really perfect, rather than it looking like it will look at the end of this development cycle that e-ink are doing.
I certainly had a great day drawing in London. Firstly, let's talk about the export options. So the Bigme and the Boox, they both have the option to export via Google Drive, which is really useful. You can upload things to the Google Drive on your Supernote, but it's not as seamless as just being able to click export, share, and then click on the Google Drive. All three of them do have web apps and desktop apps that you can bring things down from though. The Boox though gives one different option compared to the Bigme, and then it asks you if you want a vector-based PDF or a bitmap PDF, whereas the Bigme just gives you the PDF file, which is a bitmap file. I did have a bit of a time actually seeing the drawings for the Supernote in the partner app, but actually they were there, but the drawings automatically go into the export file for some reason. So I was exporting them as PNG so I could then use them on the computer, and they were both there in the export file. And the beauty of having that export as a vector is you can then work on something like Illustrator and actually work with the quality of each of the lines. It gives you all of the vector information. And also, if I zoom right in on this vector drawing, you can see the edges maintain their crispness all the time. Whereas if I look at a bitmap, zoom in, you can see that the edges of those lines are actually pixelated. Although the pencil still has that kind of pixelated view. You can see it drawing itself there. If you import that into Illustrator or another vector-based editing software, you could actually change the quality of all of those lines. You could change the color, you could change the width. However, interestingly, the colors never look the same on the screen or once you've printed them as they do on the e-ink tablet. So one thing that I've been doing is actually using Photoshop to sort of bring down the saturation of those colors there as well. So if I show you a bit of a before and after here, this is the colors straight off the e-ink tablet. They look great. And this is once I've brought down the saturation in Photoshop. So here, this one, for instance, I was using the purple marker just to give a little bit of tone as well as a little bit of color. So I can run the camera raw filter here and I can change all the colors individually. And if I don't like the depth of some of the lines, so for instance, I want to make those marks a bit darker, look, I can change the shadows there. I can make the highlights a bit brighter. The blacks, well, the black point is black, so it's not going to change at all there. But importantly, down here in the colors, I can pick the purple and I can desaturate that purple. And now that looks a lot better to me. And I did want it to be the darkest tones. There we go, look at that. That is looking a lot better straight away there, isn't it? And one idea that we had when we were discussing Remarkable 3 with myself, Brandon and Voya, was that actually a good thing that a company could do would be to add this option in as a sort of AI preset, that once you upload those images off the e-ink tablet, it tries to return you something that looks somewhat like it did, or something very pleasing as it did on the e-ink tablet. So actually these colors look quite nice. Sure, drawing gives you a limited color palette, but those colours are not displeasing, especially with the bright colours of the Raphael that I was trying to capture here in this drawing. But all of this does point to that these are better places to start pieces of digital art, and then you can go ahead and use that information. Just do the lines, for instance, like this one, and then go ahead and bring that up in full Photoshop on a full desktop PC, and you can go ahead and add the colors as you want them to look. I was also asked how these colors and things actually look when they're printed out. So let's have a little look through some of them. This one, you can see this was the original full color here. And yeah, okay, my printer has clearly running out of ink or something funny is going on, because I had lots of trouble with printing this one and getting the reds to work at all. But you can see actually it's giving quite a pleasing kind of rendition there, straight from the original image. This is the one that I think actually does like the gaudy colours, and I don't feel the need to change the colours too much on this one, because actually those bright colours in that Impressionist Manet were lovely. And again, this one's printed out quite nicely here with the original colours, so they are toned down a bit from what you see on an IPS or an OLED panel. But I do think the way that I've toned them down on the Photoshop are actually much nicer, much more pleasing on this screen here. And this one similarly needs to have that red toned back, as I have done here. And then I was also asked how do the lines from the Supernote look once they're printed. Let's bring those up. As I say, they're in export. Here's this guy. Looks good. There's some, some loss of quality there, and the lack of contrast is really because of my printer rather than these lines. These points should be black, but I've got a very old printer. And this one, oh, I haven't printed that one out. And the ones that I did in the really dark room with the Caravaggios, I actually really like. I think they've come out really well. And that shows you how one of the things I did not really miss having the front line. And well, of course, sketchbooks never had front lines, did they? And well, they aren't broken, even though I'm trying to replace them with the ink. And lastly, this one from the Titian there. Now, I also just about got the hang of this pinch and zoom business. You can see one thing about the Supernote, although it absolutely was the most pleasurable to draw on, and I didn't really miss the Feel Right 2, so I have had experience with the Feel Right 2. This thing, the difficulty with pinching and zooming and how sort of slow that is, was a bit annoying at this point. So the faster processors and things, they should make that a little bit better on the newer generation there. I would say if you're wondering about whether you should upgrade just for the Feel Right 2, I wouldn't think that's the case. If you're happy writing, still enjoying writing on this screen, I wouldn't worry about it in terms of the screen itself. As long as the processing power isn't bothering you, I think just you can stick with the A5X here. And the other thing that I forgot to mention just as I left the gallery there is actually the zoom on this was quite annoying as well, because although you can see it's a bit snappier to, this one doesn't have pinch and zoom, I don't think. Now when I'm zoomed in, I can move it around a lot easier, a lot snappier like that. But as I was drawing, I was accidentally moving it. So I was trying to make some lines here. I was accidentally moving it with my palm. There you go, there's one. So, although it does have palm rejection, look, the slightest touch was almost too snappy. There we go, we're back in. So on the drawings on here, you seem to need to like pinch and then zoom. Pinch and zoom works reasonably well on books, although it does that large volume notes thing. All of them lagging behind what you get on an iPad, for instance. None of them perfect. You can do that, but it isn't a perfect workflow. Love drawing on these things though. Let me know if you think I really should have tried the Remarkable on the Scribe as well. And yeah, hopefully we'll do a similar video in the future. And maybe I'll try and get permission to actually bring a tripod in next time.